Good evening and welcome to Primetime News here on TV1. I'm Disal Kapuke for News First, where we are and always will be with the people. Before we get into the stories in detail, let's first take a look at the headlines.
Israel in turmoil over Netanyahu's judicial plan. Cabinet green light to award 450 CPC filling stations to 3 overseas companies. Lanka IOC to open 34 new filling stations. CPC workers launch Satyagraha against privatization attempts. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says an election will be held before December. Municipal workers who attended sewage repair dead. Free rice for low-income earning families. Program commences from Hammanthota.
Now in a top story, Israel witnessed intense turmoil on Monday as protesters took to the streets to oppose Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's bitterly contested judicial overhaul. The nationwide demonstrations, one of the largest in Israel's history, were sparked by the sacking of Netanyahu's defense chief a day earlier. Now back in your local news, the Court of Appeal dismissed a writ application that was filed seeking an order to be made on the Attorney General to arrest and produce in court Senior DIG Deshabandhu Tennakon. The application was dismissed by the Court of Appeal President Nisanka Bandula Karunaratne and Justice A. Marika, subject to a fee.
The application was filed by attorney Ramalingam Rajan with regard to the incident where on the 9th of May 2022, Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna activists and supporters who gathered at temple trees assaulted activists who were present at Maina Gogama and Gota Gogama. The application sought an order on the Attorney General to arrest and produce in court Senior DIG Deshabandhu Tennakon by naming him as a suspect for failing to prevent the attacks.
The appeal filed by the Attorney General against releasing IUSF convener Vasantha Mudalige will be called on the 3rd of April at the Colombo High Court. The appeal was taken up for consideration at the Colombo High Court.
Convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation, Vasantha Mudalige, who was detained and remanded under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, was released by the Colombo Chief Magistrate, citing the lack of evidence. The Attorney General had filed an appeal with the Colombo High Court, noting that the decision made by the Chief Magistrate was in violation of the law and the order be revised.
If the government had a desire to send us back into prison, they will fabricate evidence for this purpose. This is a serious blow to democracy.
The chairman of the Indian Oil Corporation, or IOC, Srikanth Madhav Vaidya, called on President Ranil Wickremesinghe over the weekend.
The chairman of IOC, Srikanth Madhav Vaidya, met with President Wickremesinghe along with Sri Pankaj Jain, the secretary to the Indian Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. He presented 500 IOC-produced indoor solar cooking systems to the government of Sri Lanka in the presence of Gopal Bagle, the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka. The visiting IOC chairman also presented a unique jacket made of sustainable threads obtained by recycling PET bottles under Indian Oil's Unbottled initiative. In addition, he also took part in an event to inaugurate 3 filling stations of Lanka IOC in Colombo, and the opening of the new premises were done remotely. Manoj Gupta, the managing director of LIOC, tweeted that 34 more new LIOC filling stations are set to commence physical operations within March 2023, further strengthening the footprints of LIOC in the country. The chairman of IOC noted that it underlines the company's unwavering dedication to fortify Sri Lanka's energy security and also demonstrates the IOC commitment to becoming a dominant player in the global energy space. The chairman of IOC, Srikanth Madhav Vaidya, also met with Sri Lankan cricket legend and World Cup winning captain Arjuna Ranatunga in Colombo.
Sri Lanka's cabinet has given the green light to award licenses to Sinopec, United Petroleum, Australia and RM Perks of USA in a collaboration with Shell plc to enter the fuel retail market in Sri Lanka. Energy Minister Kanchana Wijesekara said that the Energy Committee and relevant other procurement committees had given their approval and recommendation to award the 3 companies the license to operate. He said that the 3 companies will be allocated 150 dealer-operated fuel stations, each which are currently operated by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. He added that these companies will be granted a license to operate for 20 years to import, store and distribute and sell petroleum products in Sri Lanka. He added that a further 50 fuel stations at new locations will be established by each selected company. Petroleum Trade Union Collective launched a Satyagraha campaign opposite the Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals Limited in Kolonava against attempts to privatize the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. Prior to commencing the Satyagraha, they obtained blessings from the clergy. The Petroleum Trade Union Collective said attempts are being made to award 600 CPC filling stations to 4 overseas petroleum companies, while the CPC is making massive profits. They launched the Satyagraha program, demanding an immediate end to such attempts. In addition, they demand to suspend attempts to award fuel distribution to the north and east to Lanka IOC alone.
The Petroleum Minister justifies this decision, citing that it would create market competition leading to a price reduction. This is the same manner in which IOC was introduced in 2003. It has been proven that fuel prices in Sri Lanka cannot be reduced by creating a competitive market. The process of doing so must be explained to the country. 9 billion rupees was made in profits last month. 12 billion rupees was made in profits in January. The CPC is recording massive profits. Minister Kanchana Wijesekara can actually provide relief to the people and reduce the prices of fuel. However, the profit-making CPC is being sold in pieces to private firms. If a response is not given to the Satyagraha, we will launch a Fast Unto Death campaign.
Among other demands of the petroleum workers is to suspend slashing worker benefits and abolish the new tax regime introduced by the government.
A media briefing was convened regarding the decision taken to divest government shares of 7 state enterprises including Sri Lanka Telecom. Representatives of several trade unions including telecom trade unions as well as representatives of civil organizations joined the media briefing.
They're selling profit-making entities. That's the first thing. Even when selling Sri Lankan Airlines, they're planning to sell the 2 profit-making units of the company. They will sell the CEB and the CPC after making both institutions profitable. That is exactly why they increased the electricity tariff. Now the CEB is earning profits. They're planning to do the same with the CPC. They're selling the future of this country. Please stop this immediately. If you don't do so, we as the trade unions and joint political parties will get together and take strict action against this. A government without the people's mandate is trying to sell off public property.
The Samagi Jana Balaveke also commented on the sale of national assets.
National assets are being sold off. An IMF condition is that state enterprises that are a burden to the state must be restructured. However, the government is attempting to sell off the profit-making ventures. They have named 7 of these SOEs. We are informed that around 25 SOEs are to be sold off.
The Sri Lankan government says there is no alternative to these concerns.
Some question if we are selling off the profit-making ventures. What we decide to sell is based on the process of debt repayment. If you consider a person, institution or organization, legal action will be taken if you fail to settle the debt. You will be blacklisted. Thereafter, you cannot keep all your profit-making properties with you. You must settle the debt by selling them off. There may be different views about this, yet we believe there is no other alternative. Some SOEs increased their productivity via privatization. At this time, if we offer the loss-making ventures, no one will come forward to invest. Therefore, a special committee is working on certain assets. These SOEs will be managed in the most beneficial manner to the country. There is uncertainty surrounding the local government election 2023, despite the Election Commission deciding that the 25th of April will be the day of the election.
Sri Lanka's Election Commission has called for a meeting with Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, who is also the Minister of Local Government, to discuss the future course of action with regards to election. Election Commission Chairman Attorney Nimal Punchiheva told Newsfirst that if funding the election is further delayed, it would lead to a further postponement of the election. In addition, a cabinet memorandum on making payments for public sector employees who submitted nominations for the local government election is expected to be presented to the Cabinet of Ministers on Monday. It is reported that around 3,000 public sector employees submitted nominations to contest the local government election.
Leader of the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana, Mahinda Rajapaksa, said that he believes an election will take place before December 2023. The former president was speaking to reporters following an event at the Abhayarama temple in Colombo today.
මං හිතන්නේ මේ දෙසැම්බර් මාසේ වෙනකොට තියයි ඊට ඉස්සෙල්ලා ඉතිවරණයක් එයි කියලා මගේ බලාපොරොත්තුව. මැතිවරණය මේ මොහොතේ අවශ්‍යයිද සර් කොහොමද? මැතිවරණය පයි යන්නේ කවුද? දේශපාලකයෝ. ජනාධිපතිවරණයක් හෝ මහා මැතිවරණයක් යනවා කියලා තමයි මතපද. මොනවා මැතිවරණයක් තිබුණත් අපි ඒකට රැස්තියි. සර් රටේ ආර්ථික තත්ත්වය කොහොම වෙයිද ඉදිරියට? අපි ඉතින් බලාගෙන ඉන්නේ.
Kumar Sangakkara, a former Sri Lankan cricket captain, recently commented on the people's struggle and the future. He was speaking to the Oxford Union, the world's most prestigious debating society.
And I think this is the time in our country now, having seen what's happened with Aragalaya, having seen what's happened with a larger involvement of our youth in political discourse, in standing up against policy and politics and politicians that have been negatively impactful to the country. Where do we go next? How do you change the system? Everyone will say politics is dirty. Do not get involved. But without the involvement of these young leaders that I saw, the activists that were out there, the real question is, how do you now take that social movement, the call for change, and convert it into one that is impactful in our political system? How do you change what has been to something that's better? It's not going to happen overnight, but it is a fight worth committing to. And in terms of all the statements that cricketers have made over the years with various aspects, what's really needed is work and commitment and the actual mucking in and really working hands-on in that arena. I don't think I'm capable of that, but I think a lot of the youth now are. And our job is to support that and to invite that and to be a part of the journey and to do as much as we can for the country that we are from, because it is a country definitely worth fighting for. It's a country that's given me everything. And I think this is the time, the window of opportunity in the next 6 to 10 years is where I think that involvement must come, because the doors are closing fast. And I hope that all of us, all the young leaders, don't allow that door to be closed in our faces. Because when it does, the grind back to get that little opening for us to influence the country, or for the young leaders today, the youth to influence the country, to get it to where it can go, is going to be much harder than it is now.
News First, with the people.
A plethora of efforts have been made to ensure that Sri Lanka becomes self-sufficient. However, the Sri Lankan farmer remains plagued with multiple issues that have not been resolved. Farmers in Galembinduru Vawa, Anuradhapura are in dire straits as they are unable to sell their paddy harvest for a reasonable price.
Sri Lankan farmers from the villages of Nikawawa, Dikwawa, Gamarankalla, Aluddiul Vawa, Gatalawa, Dutuwawa and Dutuwawa have started reaping the harvest of this Maha season. Despite facing a plethora of difficulties, these farmers cultivated their rice fields as it was their only source of income. Farmers pointed out that the disease that turned rice plants yellow affected their crops, leading to a considerable reduction in the yield. The farmers noted that as the government failed to declare a just price for paddy, they are facing serious issues economically.
It cost 160,000 rupees to cultivate 1 hectare. We cannot afford the luxuries, and that is why we engage in paddy farming. The government must buy a kilogram of paddy for at least 140 rupees. If not, we cannot survive.
There is no point in reaping the harvest. We cannot do anything with an increase of 70 rupees per kilogram. The rent for the tractor costs 27,000 rupees. When we pay for everything, there will be nothing left for us. How can we live like this? We are in debt.
When payments are made for the machinery, the farmer is left with nothing to survive. We cannot afford anything for the upcoming new year. We are helpless. The Hambantota district program to deliver rice to low-income earning families across the country free of charge commenced this morning. The project commenced from the Veerakatya Divisional Office and was attended by Agriculture Minister Mahinda Amaraveera. Under this program, each family will be given 10 kilograms of rice per month for 2 months.
52% of the families in Hambantota seek relief. I am not pleased with the economic status of this district. My objective as the Agriculture Minister is to reduce that figure to 25%. We will also try to alleviate the living standards of the low-income earning families. We will provide 7,000 goats to the Hambantota district along with 30,000 chicks. We are trying to award them with 100,000 rupees as well. If you ask what they want, whether it is the election or rice, they will say rice.
Two workers attached to the Colombo Municipal Council who fell unconscious while repairing a drainage system in Kotahena, Colombo, have died upon admission to hospital.
A group of workers of the Colombo Municipal Council had travelled to the George R. Silva Mawatha this evening to carry out maintenance work on a drainage system. Police surmise the two workers could have been killed by inhaling a toxic gas.
Up next is Crime Watch.
Crime Watch.
A female agriculture research product assistant attached to Netolpitiya Agrarian Services Centre in Tangol was brutally murdered on Monday morning. A sharp weapon was used to commit the murder at around 8 a.m. along a by-road in the Ranmalu village in Valiara in Tangol. The victim was identified as a 30-year-old female from Netolpitiya Valiara. A police investigation revealed that she was attacked while she was on her way to attend a field assignment and she was killed by a local man, citing an official dispute that took place on Sunday. The victim was travelling on a motorcycle along with her mother-in-law when she was attacked. The mother-in-law was unharmed. The killer had requested an agriculture certificate from the victim several days ago, citing that a friend was operating a banana cultivation. However, she had refused to comply with the request, and on Sunday night, the man had visited her residence and threatened her. The killer was arrested by police.
The first ever heart-lung transplant in Sri Lanka was performed at the Colombo National Hospital recently. Newsfirst followed the backstory of this unique operation.
19-year-old Vihagana Arya Singha. Vihagana, a resident of Ammanpula town, is the youngest in a family of 3 children. She was gifted with a knack for learning. She excelled at the ordinary level examination while at the Gajanagagama Mahavidyalaya in Mahava and entered the Malyadeva Girls College in Kurunagala to pursue her A-levels in the commerce stream in the English medium. She bravely faced the A-level examinations without any idea of the destiny that awaited her.
විහඟන ආරියසිංහදුව අපේ පාසලේ හිටපු දීප්තිමත් ශිෂ්‍යාවක් සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ A සාමාර්ථ 7ක් සහ B සාමාර්ථ 2ක් ලබාගෙන මලියදේව බාලිකාවට උසස් පෙළට ඇතුළත් වෙන්නේ ඉංග්‍රීසි මාධ්‍යයෙන් වාණිජ්‍ය විෂය ධාරාව හදාරන්න. හරිම කනගාටුයි දක්ෂ දරුවෙක් ප්‍රතිඵල එනකොට හොඳ ප්‍රතිඵලයක් ලබන දරුවෙක් තමයි අපිට අහිමිනේ.
The class teacher of 12C3 at Malyadeva Girls College, the class in which Vihagana studied, spoke to us about what transpired.
විහංගනා මේ පන්ති අවුරුදු දෙකක කාලයක් තිස්සේ අපිත් එක්ක හිටපු දියණියක් අපි ඇත්තටම යාට හරි ආදරේ යාගේ තිබෙච්ච විනයගරුක බව සහ පරිත්‍යාගශීලී බව අපි මුලින් ඉඳලාම දැක්කා යාළුවෝ අතර යා හරිම සුවදශීලී.
Following the A-level examination, Vihagana travelled to Anuradhapura along with her sister to participate at the virtuous deed of bricklaying for the construction of the Sandahiru Saya. When Vihagana came home after the event, she developed a headache and fell ill. prompting her parents to admit her to the Galgamuur District Hospital on the 17th of March. Due to her serious condition, she was transferred to the Kurunagal Teaching Hospital for further treatment that night. But her life could not be saved. Medical tests had revealed that she had died due to brain death caused by cancer. According to the wishes of the family members, Vihagana's organs were donated to critically ill patients.
ආසාව තිබිලා තියෙනවා මෙයාගේ. අක්කත් එක්ක කිව්වලු මෙහෙමයි රාන්රාත් ගල් දෙන්න ගිහිල්ලා. ඒ ඇවිල්ලා කිව්වලු මෙහෙම ආසාව තියෙනවා මෙහෙම අපි දන් දෙමු කොණ්ඩේ දෙමු මෙහෙම අවයව දෙනවා කියලා ඉතින් ෆෝන් එකෙන් බලන්න කිව්වලු එහෙම රෙජිස්ටර් දෙන්න තියෙනවද කියලා. ඉතින් එහෙම කියලා ඒ වගේ කියලා තිබුණා. ඊට පස්සේ ඉතින් අක්කා කිව්වා මෙහෙම නංගි කිව්වනේ කියලා. ඉතින් අපිත් දැනගත්තා ඉතින් එයාට ලොකු පිනක් නේ නිකන් දැනගෙනනේ ඉතින් දැනගෙන නිකන් අපරාධ නිකන් බොරුවට එහෙම දෙයක් එයාට ළමයට පිනක් ලැබෙන දෙයක් තියෙනවනේ ඒක දෙන එක ලොකු දෙයක් නේ.
In time, Vihagana's gift managed to save the lives of 7 others, making her dream come true. Accordingly, 19-year-old Vihagana's heart and lungs were transplanted in another patient. Another unique incident was that both these organs were transplanted to a consultant anesthetist who was in a critical condition due to heart and lung failure. It is the first time in the country that both the heart and lungs have been transplanted at the same time to the same person. In addition, the 2 kidneys taken from Vihagana have been successfully transplanted to 2 critically ill patients. Vihagana's liver and eye membranes have also helped give a healthy life to 3 more people. Vihagana may have left us, but the example she left behind is one that all of us must ponder.
The matter of restructuring domestic debt has come to the fore once more. Parliamentarian Professor G.L. Piris commented on the matter during a media briefing held today.
Attempts are being made to restructure domestic debt. We are strongly against it. The detrimental impacts of it will be felt by low-income earners very soon. Low-income earners will suffer before our own eyes. They will be the most impacted by hikes in taxes, electricity tariffs, water tariffs and interest rates. What should be done first is to set a social security net and provide concessions for them to live. That is how this should be started. But we do not see it happening.
A conference on debt restructuring organized by the International Development Economics Associates Law and Society Trust was held in Colombo on Saturday.
Of course, there are questions about these targeted social transfers and particularly cash transfers and what happens with inflation to those cash transfers. But even leaving that aside, if you look at the IMF report, they are allocating a mere 0.6% of our GDP for social protection. This is grossly inadequate. And this is what we've been told to wait for a year while our economy contracted by almost 1/10. There is also a lot of talk in the IMF agreement about state-owned enterprise reforms. In other words, privatization. So are we going to see in the next months and years a fire sale of our assets? And is that what's in the cards in terms of a country that has no bargaining power? This is the worst time to privatize, but is that how we are going to pay for both our imports in terms of address the balance of payment problems as well as raise the revenues to show a primary surplus? So this is going to have long-term implications in terms of our economy, and I think we've already gone through considerable pain over the last year, and the next few years, I would say, there is going to be these dynamics, the fallout of this process, the IMF agreement and debt restructuring that is going to change the social, economic and political trajectory of our country. And all of these we have to be cognizant of.
The US Central Bank has raised interest rates over the weekend, despite fears that the move could add to financial turmoil after a string of bank failures.
The Federal Reserve increased its key rate by 0.25 percentage points, calling the banking system sound and resilient. But it also warned that fallout from the bank failures may hurt economic growth in the months ahead. The Fed has been raising borrowing costs in a bid to stabilize prices. But the sharp increase in interest rates since last year has led to strains in the banking system. Two US banks, Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, collapsed this month, buckling in part due to problems caused by higher interest rates. News First spoke to managing member and portfolio manager of GCI Partners LLC, Niraj A. Gupta, regarding the matter.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has increased interest rates at its most rapid pace in 40 years. The U.S. Federal Reserve Central Bank policy, unfortunately, has huge consequences for the rest of the world. And I think there's a saying, when the U.S. catches a cold, the world gets a flu. I think a lot of the problems in the global financial system oftentimes originate from the excesses in the U.S. Financial system, because at the end of the day, the dollar is the reserve currency for the world, right? And by definition, the U.S. Central Bank is the central bank to the world.
The National Peace Council of Sri Lanka says Sri Lanka's reconciliation process should be homegrown and should venture beyond retributive justice and restorative justice.
The National Peace Council has issued this statement following media reports of a ministerial delegation visiting South Africa to undertake a study of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the reconciliation process that took place in that country over 2 decades ago. The NPC highlights the openness and transparency as an important feature of the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, saying, quote, "The National Peace Council believes that such a commission could provide Sri Lanka with renewed hope in terms of peace and reconciliation for those who have been affected by gross human rights violations," unquote. The NPC iterates the need for a homegrown reconciliation process, one which is organic to Sri Lanka.
Now in some news, just in issuing a statement on the anti-terrorism bill gazetted on the 22nd of March, the Centre for Policy Alternatives notes that the present bill requires serious attention, especially when authorities have used security laws to target minorities, critics and protesters, entrenching a culture of torture and impunity in Sri Lanka. The CPA reiterates that law reform alone cannot achieve far-reaching change in the absence of a genuine political will to change the culture of dehumanizing treatment of persons under the guise of counter-terror. The CPA has expressed concern with the secrecy surrounding and the timing of the publishing of the anti-terrorism bill. It says the bill is deeply problematic and the secrecy is indicative of the lack of interest to genuinely engage with the public on a critical issue. The CPA said the preliminary issues raised in this hope of constructively engaging with authorities and lawmakers and to create a dialogue on whether such a law is even needed in Sri Lanka. Now moving on with the news, Amnesty International Senior Director Deprosi Mukena has arrived in Colombo for the regional launch of Amnesty's Global Annual Report.
Deprosi Mukena will be the key speaker at the regional launch of the Annual Report 2023 on the 28th of March in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Given the current economic crisis and human rights situation in Sri Lanka, he aims to use his presence to highlight and stress on the urgent need to protect and promote the rights of the island's 22 million people. Deprosi Mukena is the Senior Director for Regional Human Rights Impact at Amnesty International, where he oversees Amnesty regional officers across the world to lead the mandate of expanding human rights footprint. He has previously worked with United States Agency for International Development and the Open Society Initiative for Southern Africa.
Performances held in line with the Francophonie 2023 was held at the University of Jaffna on Sunday.
The Embassy of Switzerland to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, together with the organization International de la Francophonie, celebrates Francophonie 2023, featuring Les Monsieur, the famed duo Laurent Brunetti and Mario Pacchioli from Switzerland. The second performance, held in line with Francophonie 2023, was held at the University of Jaffna on Sunday.
And tonight we brought here the Monsieur. It's a Swiss group that shared the multicultural side of Switzerland, singing in all the Swiss language, French, German, Italian and Romansh, and also sharing the music of the great singer of the Francophonie like Edith Piaf, Jacques Brel. And we were here with a wonderful public who was very warm and welcoming and shared with us this moment. We really enjoyed this time, and thank you, Jaffna, for having us.
A masterclass conducted by the duo was held this morning at the University of Jaffna. The final performance of Francophonie 2023 will be held on the 28th of March in Kandy. All these events are free and open to anyone on a first-come, first-served basis.
The launch of Unbowed and Unafraid, the biography of Lasantha Wickrematunge by Rain Wickrematunge, was held a short while ago.
When talking about the nation's most influential journalists, the name Lasantha Wickrematunge would undoubtedly come to your mind. We all remember how the news of his assassination sent shockwaves not only across the country, but the whole world. Lasantha Wickrematunge was not just a journalist. He was a lawyer, a politician, a broadcaster, a human rights activist. Now, even 14 years after he left us, his legacy continues to live. Today, I am at the launch of his biography, Unbowed and Unafraid, authored by Rain Wickrematunge. Today, Lasantha Wickrematunge's legacy in writing will be released for Sri Lanka and the world to see.
The launch of Unbowed and Unafraid, the biography of Lasantha Wickrematunge by Rain Wickrematunge, was held at Sri Lanka Foundation Institute earlier today. This publication recounts the life of Lasantha Wickrematunge, offering an inside look at his life and work. The book describes vital aspects of the late Lasantha Wickrematunge, including his journey in journalism and his family life. Family members, peers and colleagues of the late Lasantha Wickrematunge attended the launch.
He said the Sunday leader stood for three things: transparent, to Sri Lanka as a transparent, secular and liberal society. And he urges us, in his own words, he says, think about these three words. But he focused his life on the first one mostly. Government must be openly accountable. And this absence of this accountability that has led us to where we are today. And today, what's the context in which we meet? A country that is made bankrupt. Of course, the president has come and said that, well, we got the IMF loan, we are not bankrupt anymore. As usual, he lives on another planet. So we don't have to take his word for it. It's not like tomorrow you walk and you go in and find that bread is down to 50 rupees and petrol is down to 250. We have a $75 billion debt to be paid. That's not been sorted out. That's the context. So what Lasantha spoke about and the urge, the importance of openly accountable, has come home. We are facing the consequences of that.
I hope that everybody reads the book and finds inspiration to take, not just wait for change, but take change and move on with change themselves. Be the change. That's what I have been signing today, saying be the change, because that's what Lasantha was. He was a trailblazer. He didn't wait for other people to do things. He wasn't a follower, he was a leader. So I think everybody should now take charge of, instead of complaining, be the change.
What is sad is that the investigations that have been done into Lasantha's murder is nearly concluded, and it's a shame that there is no political will to see it through. And in that sense, it is essential to keep his memory alive, leading to finding who the culprits were. He was a unique human being, and his message is for all journalists. And some ask me what I would think if he was around today. And my thoughts were, perhaps if he was still around, it may have not led to this situation even. And wherever he is, he must be feeling that if his words and the other journalists who laid their lives down will not be forgotten and their lives in vain.
Lasantha Wickrematunge, who was renowned as a fearless journalist, was killed on the 8th of January 2009 after being shot by motorcycle gunmen.
Divisavia, the social service project which gives strength to our own people, is being carried out today as well. Today's program was held centering the Matale district.
Under this program, school children are being provided with exercise books and school equipment they need. Divisavia has the support of the Ministry of Education and is sponsored by the LOLC Group. This morning, the program was carried out in the Kulavadia Primary School, which belongs to the Vilgamo Education Zone in the Matale district. All books and school equipment needed by the students were distributed by Divisavia. Children of the Egoda Devagiriya Vidyalaya were also gifted books and stationery items by the LOLC Group this morning. The program was also carried out in the Vilgamo Vijay Primary School, Narangamo Primary School, Malgamala Primary School, Kahagala Primary School, Sulugune Primary School and Himbiliada Primary School of the Vilgamo Education Zone.
Scotland's governing party has elected Humza Yousaf as its new leader after a bruising 5-week contest that exposed deep fractures within the pro-independence movement. Yousaf, who is of Pakistani origin, said it will be his greatest honour if elected First Minister tomorrow when a vote takes place in the Scottish Parliament.
Yousaf will lead the Scottish National Party as a successor to First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, who unexpectedly stepped down last month after 8 years as leader of the party and of Scotland's semi-autonomous government. The 37-year-old Scot of Pakistani heritage was the favourite to win the leadership race. He was recently the Health Secretary in charge of the crisis-hit National Health Service during the coronavirus pandemic.
And that's a wrap of Prime Time News here on TV1. As always, thank you for watching. Stay safe, take care and have a good night.